Hello, everybody, and you are very welcome to Successful Perspectives. Successful Perspectives, of course, is when we deep dive into the topic of leadership with one of our members from our very selective network, Boardroom by EMIR. For this conversation, I am delighted to be joined by Diana Wilde, who is the CEO of Aurora 50, which is a very, very important social enterprise here, focusing on gender balance. Diana, it's wonderful to have you on Successful Perspectives. You're very welcome. Why don't you tell me a little bit about Aurora 50?
So thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today. Aurora 50 is a social enterprise. We support corporates in creating inclusive, thriving work environments. And we really specialize in helping achieve gender balance. So we started with boardrooms. Then we moved into supporting companies, actually increasing the number of women in their C-suite. And that has naturally led us into conversations around inclusion and making sure that you have the most thriving, high-performing companies based on diversity of thought.
I love it. Diana, I've had the pleasure of getting to know you a little bit over the last couple of years now. Time flies by. And I've got a sense of who I think you are. So I've been really looking forward to this conversation to hear your perspective on it and a perspective on yourself, so to speak. So why don't you tell me a little bit about how you define your leadership philosophy and what are some of the central tenets of that?
So I think for me, what's really important is continuous improvement. For us, as a startup, we're always learning, we're always evolving, and especially with what we support our organizations with, continuously improving and working towards the perfect outcome is what I believe in. I think servant leadership is a really crucial part of what I believe in. So I do want people to help them be their best selves. And of course, inclusion. They would kind of be the three that I think most of what I believe in kind of comes together.
And do you find when you think about your leadership philosophy, is this something you reflect on a lot, or how do you measure the success of this philosophy?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this. There are parts of this that, are very much embedded in our day to day. So continuous improvement, for example, we have dailies and we talk through the debriefs for the events and the outcomes from learning opportunities. And we do that quite a lot. But I think in terms of me really sitting back and thinking about how things are working and what's not working, those deep dives tend to be for me more on a monthly basis. So there's things that I try to bake into the culture that we have here and how we work with our clients and make sure that that's how we're treating each other, but actually looking at whether it's working and looking at the success of what we believe in is working. Probably more a case of kind of sitting down when you're doing your management reports and thinking, is that happening this way because, and just looking at what we can then change for the next month going forward and helping people to develop their own skills in those areas. Now,
when you describe all of that there, your approach, it makes me think that you are a natural born leader. And I'm curious, is that how you would define or see yourself? Would you consider yourself a natural leader, or is it something you had to grow into?
Yeah, for me, I definitely think it's something I had to grow into. And I don't think until Aurora 50 and co-founding the organization, I necessarily even viewed myself that way. And we've been managing teams and departments, things like that. But, really the mindset changes when you're the one that the buck stops with. And so I think for me, that's when I really started looking much more deeply at what are the areas that I need to develop in myself. I'd always been interested in that, but it's very different being one person in a company of 30,000 where you're one of many, to you being at the top of a much smaller organization. So I think at that point, that was when I really started viewing myself, I guess, in that capacity and really questioning myself to make sure that I could really serve the people that report into me and that work with us. That's really when I started looking at it. So no, I don't necessarily, there are aspects I think that I do more naturally, that I do consider requirements for being a natural leader, but I think it's a bit of a mixture.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point. A few points there when I'm listening to you. One is, you say a small organization. I would say one of the most impactful organizations that I've come across, and that's a compliment to you and your team.
It's a
And
huge
therefore,
compliment.
it's true. And it's also a compliment then on your leadership, right? Obviously, it's a team effort, of course. And the other thing when I hear your answer, I love your answer because I have a lot of these conversations. And it's fine. Some people will say, yeah, I'm a natural leader. I always kind of worry about that a little bit, because if yes, there are certain traits where perhaps there's a better inclination towards leadership. But I feel if you feel you have those traits early on, and you don't have the experience or you don't have the knowledge, that in itself is quite a dangerous thing. I think it's very healthy and it's a very good thing if we're all questioning, are we leaders? Because when you're questioning yourself, then you're starting to look at, well, which areas do I need to get better at? Instead of just assuming, oh no, I'm naturally born to this. So I like that, and I don't hear that answer enough. I'd give the same answer that you gave, but often I don't really hear that. And it's also tied in as well, Diana, into how the goalposts have shifted over the last few decades in terms of leadership itself. So I'd love to get your take on how you see the role of modern leadership. In the past, it was very much a focus on the bottom line, the P&L, profitability, and that was kind of that. Now it's, and rightly so, I would say, it's shifting into how do we create a culture where people can thrive and be the best version of themselves and have a positive impact, and then also have a positive impact on society as a product of that. So what's your take on how you're seeing the role of the modern leader shift, and particularly with a lot of the amazing female leaders that you work with?
So I think this is a really, really important point, and I think it has completely changed what is expected of a leader. And I think it's a really good thing, actually. I think as you have these younger people coming into the workforce as well, it's really pushing us to think about things differently because they are more purpose-driven. You spend so much time at work. I cannot understand how you cannot want to use that time productively to do something that makes you feel you had a productive life, and that there was purpose. So I think it is your responsibility as a leader to create the kind of environment where people can be their best selves, and that they can have an impact and they can learn and grow. And if they choose to leave your company and come back, then, great. Like it shouldn't be seen as a negative thing. I also think that organizations really should be making an impact on community and on society in a positive way as well. I'm not sure I believe in the right to take all the benefits in terms of profit without actually contributing to making the world a better place. That said, I'm not naive. You have to make money. You have to be sustainable. But I think it's about being sustainable. Businesses are developed, are created, are built with a purpose, with a vision. It's not just about making money. That's not. I find it difficult to imagine a founder ever looking at it just that way. Normally, founders come into this with a real passion for wanting to fix the challenge or the need that they see. So I don't believe that companies are just about making money at all. I think they're about serving the need of a particular group or helping society in a particular way, which ultimately you get paid to do because you do it better than other people, and therefore you survive and others don't necessarily. So I think it's really, really important that companies and leaders actually do think about the impact that they have, whether that's internally and making sure that they're really questioning themselves if they're not creating the kind of environment where people thrive. And that's something that, you know, like you say, I mean, you've met my team. I'm incredibly blessed with the people that we have working at Aurora 50. They're amazing, and they really believe in what we do, and therefore they have a tendency of really giving a huge part of themselves. But it's my job then to make sure that I pull them back and say, you can't do this all the time. You're going to burn yourself out. It's not good for business. It's not good for yourself. You know, need to make sure that you pace yourself with these things too. I think that's my role as a leader, is to help them grow and to make sure they can achieve their goals and get their tasks done as efficiently as possible. But at the same time, as an organization, we have a very clear purpose. And I think we'll see a lot more companies that focus on purpose as we move forward, rather than it being focused on profitability. And I think things like climate change and concerns around the SDGs or ESG is all bringing this to a forefront. I don't think we had it right when we weren't focused on that, when we were just looking at share prices and just pure ROI. I don't think we had it right at all.
And there's still quite a bit to go there, I would say. You rightly mentioned, you know, we spend large chunks of our lives at work. And I love that idea of, you know, how can you not come to the conclusion that we spend such a large chunk of time at work and then not end up doing something that is at least trying to contribute to the greater good. So given that we spend such an amount of time at work, what do you feel is career advice that you would like to share with maybe, you know, younger people on your team, or we have a lot of viewers who engage with this content who are rising stars in their careers. So what career advice would you give to them?
So I had a really interesting learning kind of after I left the very, very large Fortune 500. I went and put myself through a lot of courses in design thinking and learned to build an app and all these kind of things. And during that time, what struck me the most was that anytime I was stuck, the answer wasn't in the room. The answer was in the market. It was with somebody else. So whether it was me going back to, so for example, when I did actually go back to working after having the first business that I did, I was struggling to negotiate my salary. And the advice that I was given at that point was go and speak to a recruiter, find out what the band is for this kind of role. Genius advice, made it much easier for me to negotiate what I was going to get paid for the Fortune 500 that I went and worked for. But the same happens when you're an entrepreneur, you know, when you're stuck, when you can't quite work out why it's not working, it's because the answer isn't in the room. And I tell this to my team all the time when we're sat there, you know, puzzled about why something isn't working or looking at how we can amplify something. Most of the time we need to pick up the phone and we need to talk to somebody else and get their inputs and understand their pain point better or understand their need better. And it's in doing that as a practice, I think you develop yourself and your product much better to suit, you know, what is actually going to work for people. So my advice would be, if you feel stuck, don't keep asking yourself and the same people the same questions. Go and find the answer somewhere else. Go and speak to the market. Go and speak to a recruiter. Go and speak to people that can give you advice and learn to ask really smart questions. And you will always find your answer.
It's so true, and I've never thought of it that way. You know, myself and my teammates, we run a network. But I've also invested in a lot of other businesses and I have a lot of other projects on. And by virtue of that network, I can assure you there's so many times during the day I don't have an answer to a specific question, but I'll always know somebody who knows not only a kind of ballpark answer, but a very precise and educated and intelligent answer to these questions. And it's so true. The answer may not be in the room, but it's out there in the market. It's great advice.
It was the gentleman who was teaching me how to build an app that really distilled it for us. Because, you know, what he was basically saying is when we were asking him, how do I code this? How do I do this? And he said, you know, what you're asking me are actually business questions. They're not coding questions. And it was that really triggered this thinking, which is just keep asking the wrong people. We're not really, you know, we're asking the people that are in front of us, but they're not necessarily the people that are actually going to give you the advice that you need. So take a step back, really think about who it is that can give you the right advice, and then go and ask it.
Exactly. And don't ask people who haven't done what it is you're curious about. All too often we go to friends or family and we ask them a question that in reality they're going to give you an answer because you're asking them a question, but it's not based in any kind of experience. Only ask people that have done or have had success in the area that you want to have success in. Diana, it's been an absolute pleasure as always, and thank you for being on Successful Perspectives. And it was,
thank you so much for having me.
It was delightful to get to know you even a little bit more, so I appreciate it.
Keep up the good work. We look forward to seeing lots more women in the EMIR network.